Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Klevit here, the host of the System Simplified podcast, where I feature top founders, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this episode is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group, where we create, document, and implement processes and procedures so businesses can grow and thrive. And today's guest is Andy McNeill. Hi, Andy.
Hi, Addie. How are you doing today?
Doing great. How are you doing?
Great. A little chilly, but we're hanging in here in Florida.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it's chilly all over the country, and you are okay in Florida with 70 degrees. It's a little bit chilly, but not as bad as other places. But yes. All right. Well, Andy, let me introduce you. I'm so excited to have this conversation today. We're going to talk about meetings, and we're going to talk about culture, and we're going to talk about how to make the meetings so they're meaningful and they're actually contributing to the culture and helping organizations lead better and improve their culture. And you're definitely a thought leader in that arena. You have done a lot. So let me just start with explaining who you are and your background. So you have 30 years of working in the industry, specialized in serving others. You know, you are all about help, and you help thousands of organizations build stronger relationship through shared human experiences.
Yeah,
right?
that's
We're
right.
going to talk about those shared human experiences, which sounds great. You know, you're a successful entrepreneur. You're the founder of AMI, a global hospitality and marketing firm that elevates the corporate meetings experience to the next level. Now, you work with Fortune 500 companies, big names, but what we're going to do is, for our listeners who might not be Fortune 500 companies, some of them are, maybe they are C-level execs in Fortune 500 companies, definitely should reach out to you, but some of them might be mid-sized businesses. We're going to talk about the lessons that you experienced, that you learned from working with the bigger corporations, and how can we actually implement it more in the more entrepreneurial world, being an entrepreneur yourself and having, building your own culture in your own company.
Yeah, Addie, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. That's what we're all about here at AMI, is creating those shared meeting experiences and really using meetings as a way to engage with your attendees. And your attendees are usually your best customers, right? It can also be your internal employees. It can also be your coworkers. But really what we're trying to do here at AMI is take that process, simplify it for our clients, and teach them how to engage and create those shared experiences with their best audience, whoever that may be.
That's great. I always like to start with the history, with more of a bio. I'm really curious because this is a unique business, right?
Yeah.
How did it come about? How did you decide, okay, this is going to be my business, or this is what I'm going to do? How did it all come about? What's the history behind that?
Yeah, ever since I was, a teenager and in high school, I just really enjoyed producing events. I was on student council and student government, and just really enjoyed that part of my extracurricular activities. And over the years, I seem to always be drawn back to making experiences to make people happy and to make allow people to have fun or to achieve a goal. And so that just naturally became what I was passionate about, and kind of drove where I was in my career. And I was very lucky early on to have some fantastic mentors in the space who were some of the leading individuals in their industry to help me understand great customer service and how to produce meetings, events that really impact people's lives. And so, here I am 30 years later. Our company is 23 years old. We produce meetings and events all over the world in over 70 countries. And we really work with our clients to understand what their needs are and how they want to engage with their attendees. And then by doing so, moving their business forward. So it's a lot of fun. You got to travel the world, see amazing things, stay at amazing hotels and destinations, and I produce stuff everywhere. So it's just been a blessing.
That's amazing. Absolutely incredible. So in terms of meetings, events, what are the different types of events or meetings that you produce or that you think that companies should have?
That's a great question. It really depends on each client individually. So some clients use education as a driver to push their business forward. Obviously, meetings and events is a great way to do that. Some people use it as a way to engage with their clients. So establishing those really strong relationships, and I'm the biggest proponent of that. In this post-COVID world where we went from virtual, now we're coming back to live meetings. Everyone goes to conferences and trade shows and educational seminars, but some of that's been split and now been brought online, which is great. And every company should have a strong meeting strategy that balances the need for cost savings and efficiencies that virtual meetings allow for, but nothing can replace that one-on-one human connection. Getting to know someone personally, having a glass of wine with them after the trade show, listening to them in a room, understanding what their business needs are. Those are incredibly important touch points. And so, I believe that depending on what the strategy is for the client, how we can bring kind of best practices together, processes in our business like yours. You're an expert at this, so I don't need to tell you anything. But in our business, there's a lot of moving parts. You've got to get, 100 people, 1,000 people from point A to point B. You've got to house them. You've got to feed them. You've got to give them a great experience. You got to get them home safe again, right? There's tons of step-by-step processes that we need to do. So, developing those processes over the years has allowed us to make it really, really efficient, but also provide, and most importantly, a great customer experience. And when we do that for our clients, that's when we succeed.
Absolutely. So what are some of the key components in terms of the process of creating a great event or great meeting?
Yeah. Well, the first one starts with listening, is making sure that you listen to whoever is in charge of that, what we call here at AMI, the meeting champion, making sure you listen to that meeting champion and understand what their goals are, because your perception as a professional may not be what their reality is or what they're trying to achieve. So first step is really understanding that. Next is...
No, that's an interesting point. So on that point, what will be some examples that you hear the meeting champion will say? So I guess it can be like in a smaller organization, it might be the HR director or the marketing director, right? So what is some of the things that is important to business owners in terms of having an event or having a meeting?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost is making sure everyone has a great experience, regardless of what the content what the content is. But from a content perspective, it really could be everything. So if it's an educational, seminar, and you're trying to deliver certain educational objectives, and make sure people retain that information, how are you going to get them to retain that information? What technologies are you going to use? What testing metrics are you going to use to make sure that they retain that information? If it's more, client B2B or working with your customers, it might be, the end goal might be an increase in sales. So how are you going to measure that sales, not only before the program, so you understand where your baseline is, but after the program, how are you going to follow up with those potential opportunities and make sure that you see an ROI from the investment that you've made in that meeting and event? And then there's also the experiential, really creating that really impactful branding opportunity for your organization. So that could be at a trade show using a booth and the technologies around the booth and people and games, activities, handouts, giveaways, all those things. What is that entire strategy around to create that experience that's going to leave a positive brand impact on your attendees? And so really depending on what the experience is and what you're trying to achieve, we've seen it all. We work a lot in the B2B space. Like you said, we work with Fortune 500 companies like CVS Health, LabCorp, Bristol Myers Squibb, Pfizer. These are all clients that are using using meetings and events in different ways to achieve their end goal. And that end goal can be a variety of things. And it's really about listening to your meeting champion to understand what their their metrics are for success, and then delivering that success.
Absolutely. Okay, so the first step is to listen. What's the second step?
The second step is budgeting, where you're developing the expenses in and around the event. At the same time you're doing that, you're also sourcing the location. Are you going to do this virtually? Is it going to be an online experience, or are you going to have it at a hotel or some other venue that meets the needs of that particular event? Next, we set up the processes around it, the start to finish. How are we going to deliver that experience? And that starts with budgeting, and then goes straight into venue sourcing, like I said. And then it goes into project management and project planning, making sure each step along the way, and that include registration, attendee management, so making sure that everyone's getting back and forth, travel, and then you move into production. And then you have to have great team members on site, so you have to plan for those team members. So all those steps is a very detailed process, and it's different for each event. We're in the custom meetings business, so every experience is unique to us. So we start that process each time and take it all the way through a step-by-step process to make sure it's achieved. And then we have KPIs with our clients, so we make sure we ask them what the key performance indicators of success are, and we identify those at the beginning of the program or the beginning of the series. We follow through on that step and make sure that we hit each one of those success points.
That's great. So that's the process, basically how to set up an event. But from the perspective of interest, right? Making it memorable, making it unique.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that you have seen that really make an event successful? I mean, obviously, the preparation, it's like being a great host, right? I mean,
you hit the nail on the head right there, being a great host. I think that encapsulates what you're talking about. Like, how do you make a great experience for someone? First and foremost, you make them feel comfortable, right? And what does a host do? What does a good host do? They make them very, very comfortable. That could be as simple as a holiday party at your home, right? Making sure that you're at the door and you're greeting them. Well, there's no difference at a business meeting. You want to make sure that the meeting champion is up front and there to greet, to make sure people feel comfortable, that the staff around is there to answer any questions. People get, they can get a little timid when it comes to travel and traveling somewhere and not feeling comfortable in that space, especially with everything we're dealing with in the post-COVID world. Some people are a lot more sensitive to that travel and that experience. So educating, getting them all the information they possibly can have beforehand, so they're educated, and that education usually takes away the apprehension that they might feel from being at a new experience or a new event.
Yeah, absolutely. So give me some examples of some fun things or different things that you can add to a meeting in order to make it more meaningful. Because it's the little details. You gave the analogy of like the holiday party host, right? So obviously, you clean the house, you make sure you have enough chairs, you make sure of that, but there are always the little things, maybe the name tag, the little nice name, the placeholders for where people sit, or really thinking ahead of time who should sit where next to whom, so they will have a better conversation.
Addie, I might need to hire you. You sound like you'd be a fantastic meeting planner.
Yeah, well, it's the process around it, right? So if you really take that analogy, right, but you get it into you take it into a business meeting, because I can tell you, obviously I've been to many business meetings, and I find that those that are the most memorable for me, the ones that actually pay attention to the details, right? Anywhere from giving you a name tag that is not, that has a clip on, as opposed to making a hole in your jacket, right?
Yeah.
Or maybe it's electronic sign-in, which is the registration, and there is an app. Or, the little, the swag bag, but it's really conscientious, in terms of what do you really put in there? And it's not something that is the next, as the other things that I've seen many times before. Going all the way to the tea and the coffee and what is served in between meetings, so all those little details make a huge impact, right?
And that's why we're in business. I mean, we're experts at doing all of that. And again, every experience is different, but all the ones that you gave are great examples. I will add technology. I mean, you mentioned an app for registration, but it also goes into customer engagement, how you actually work with your attendees to create that experience through technology. So using technology to ask questions, to elicit feedback at the end of it, to make sure that they're educated in a way that is comfortable in the situation that you're in. So we're big proponents of technology here at AMI to enhance the customer experience, and that really makes a huge difference. But all those little touches, from having a talented staff that knows how to make people feel comfortable and how to diffuse awkward situations is very, very important. But all the way to how you take the attendee all through the experience, from how they feel at the registration desk to what the temperature in the room, which is always a big deal.
Oh, that's a huge deal for me. Are you kidding me? It's like, oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah.
A comfortable temperature is so important.
Yeah, so you might have, some people that are warm-blooded and some that are cold-blooded. So, we like to have, pashminas and extra jackets around should we need them, because it's not always perfect, especially when you're in a hotel or something that, maybe the AC unit is across the entire group of meeting rooms and they have a real hard time doing it. So it's all those little things that you can do. But at the end of the day, if you're attempting to do the best job possible, people are usually pretty understandable. But you want to take those extra steps to make sure everyone is as comfortable as possible. And then, by far and away at the end, making sure people get the opportunity to provide you feedback on your meeting and event. Some people might have a negative experience for whatever reason, and you might thought it had gone fine, but finding out, giving them that avenue to actually communicate back to you what the challenge was and allow you to respond makes a huge difference in the ability to make that person feel like they were heard and that their overall experience was positive because of it.
Absolutely. And we talked about technology. One of the things what I found is I love the technology. Obviously, when you have an app, so you can see the schedule, you can see what's going on, especially if you have breakout rooms, what's going on, who is the speaker, it gives you a bio, etc. But I also really like the fact that sometimes you can see all the attendees, right? So if you're going to a business conference, you definitely want to network. You want to meet people. As you said, the best connections are being made after the conference, where people meet with each other and talk to each other. And when you actually have in those apps, you can actually search. Maybe I met you, Andy, in a conference, we said, okay, let's exchange, phone numbers. I would like to talk to you because I have a client I want to refer to you. Then I can immediately, like on the app, I can see you, I can send you a text, I can connect right there. And it makes it so much easier. It replaces the business cards, it replaces a lot of things, and you can actually do meaningful follow-ups after that.
Absolutely. And we're big fans of it, as I said. And I think, in those scenarios, and not all scenarios have, small events typically don't have that type of networking, but the one-on-one networking and providing those opportunities at the event, even if it's a small event, are important, because you never know where your next connection is going to come from. It could be, someone that you're sitting next to, or it could be someone at the reception, or they have you sit next to at dinner that evening. So each one of those connection opportunities is important and should be considered.
Absolutely. I 100% agree. What about traveling? How do you find a good location of where to actually do the conference? I mean, do you do it? Is it better to do it close to the headquarters of that particular company? Is it better? I mean, obviously, you are working with global companies that have employees all over and clients all over. So how do you find a good location?
Great question. Well, I'm very blessed that we've built a great sourcing team here at AMI, and that's their sole job, is to understand, and they are the experts in understanding the experience. Again, it goes to listening to the meeting champion, understanding what their goals are, and they might say, I want to be at the ABC hotel in Las Vegas, and they may not understand that, they only have 30 people, and to be at the ABC Hotel in Las Vegas is a huge hotel, and it might not be the best venue for what they're trying to achieve. They might be much better off at a boutique hotel that has smaller meeting rooms and not as much, not such a big lobby, and create that kind of intimate experience for their attendees. So our sourcing managers are experts at that. They know all of the new properties and also the properties that we trust. We have a digital book called our favorite which kind of outline all of our favorite venues for B2B experiences. So anybody can go there and download that for free. It's ourfavoritehotels.com. But again, it's listen to the meeting champion, understand their needs, and then making those recommendations based on what you hear.
Absolutely. What about company retreats? Do you do a lot of those?
Oh, I love companies retreats. Yeah, I think company retreats are not done enough. I think a lot of people, you're always putting your money to sales and marketing and focused on that. But I think company retreats help you build your company culture, especially in today's world where a lot of companies have been flattened out. We're not all in one location. We're a great example of that, where prior to COVID, 80% of our employees were in our hometown, and now only 30% of our employees are in the hometown, and that makes retreats and bringing our team back together even more important, because retreats and company gatherings develop the culture of the organization. That's really hard to do virtually. And so I think having them in place and providing team building activities, providing trust activities, providing great education gets everybody on the same page. It also gives the opportunity to establish those one-on-one relationships that we all really rely on to run our businesses. And company gatherings are such a big part of that. And there are so many great places you can go nowadays. So you don't have to go just to the traditional hotels for them. They're great corporate retreats. There's ones that have rope climbing, and you stay in a tent for a couple of days, or there's ones that are like glamour tents. There's a great place here in Florida that does that. So there's all different types of experiences that you can do. And really what you want to do is find one that meets your culture and matches your culture, what you're trying to achieve. And that can be different at different times in your company's growth cycle.
Absolutely. So let's talk about it a little bit, because I think that will interest our listeners a lot in terms of, if you're an entrepreneur, you have a group, let's say you have 100 employees, let's say anywhere between 20 to 100 employees. They are all over, because some of them are remote, some of them, as you said, in your own hometown. What would you recommend in terms of a process, or in terms of step-by-step of how to plan that retreat for success? What to look for, what to avoid, how can we make it a success?
Well, I think first and foremost, you poll the attendees that are coming. So poll your team members and ask what they want out of it. You learn a lot. I think a lot of people assume that they know what is best and right. That's human nature, right? We all think we're correct a lot of the time. But until you hear, especially when it's a larger group, you hear directly from them about what they want to achieve, you might find out some very good information. So, getting put in a focus group together, or at a minimum, surveying your attendees, find out what their goals are, what they're trying to achieve. And I guarantee it will shift some of the goals of the event to make sure it meets the needs there. You may not know that, a certain department wasn't trained on a certain area, which is causing problems for the rest of the company, but you're not going to know that if you don't ask the question. So first and foremost, do that, and then also involve them in producing the event. You might do a contest about where you're going to have it, get ideas from your attendees, and then the experiences that you're going to have there, whether it be extracurricular or educational. Really try to weave in what they want, understanding that you have corporate goals that you're trying to achieve, and you want to make sure you achieve those. But you really want a 360 process in developing the content, and then include them and the managers as much as possible in developing the content. The content that comes from a wider range of people is going to be a lot more well received than it just coming from a few people. And, like they say, 2 heads are better than one. Well, 5 heads are better than one as well, and can make the experience even more better. So I think if you follow, that line of thinking throughout the entire creative process before you start actually planning it, you will develop a program that is much more inclusive and really meets the needs of the people who are attending, because they're the ones who told you what they needed.
Absolutely. And I think then we follow the other steps in terms of make sure that you pay attention to the details all the way from the registration.
That absolutely should be assumed as well. All the way through what we said at the end is make sure you gather feedback at the end. A lot of people forget about that. They get pats on the shoulder and they say what a great event it is. But until you hear and give people that distance to give them time to think about it, to reflect on the program itself, and then provide feedback, then you can make it even better the next time.
Absolutely. I think the feedback about the event itself is important in terms of the venue, the activities, but I also like to always hear feedback about what they actually got out of it, right? I mean, what was the takeaway? What was memorable? What is the value? Because, those things, those retreats are not cheap for the business owner.
Absolutely. A lot of investment. I think one thing that I know we do at AMI, and I know a lot of other organizations do, but it's good to point out, is at the beginning of the conference, ask people what they're trying to achieve. So you did it during the focus group, but when they arrive, what are you trying to achieve out of this? The leadership should take that information, look at it during the program, and make sure, that you are meeting the needs of people. And if it's an individual need, it's great. Maybe someone missed something in a prior training, or maybe they missed a prior training or engagement. And so you ask them, and then you help them achieve that while we're there. And so when you follow up with that survey, were all the things that you outlined achieved, hopefully you have a much better response on, yes, everything that I wanted, I got out of this particular event. Because every individual, we're in the customized meetings business. Every individual, every experience is going to be different. 2 people can go to the exact same conference and have 2 different experiences. Happens all the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Great. Andy, you've been a wealth of information here. So thank you so much for sharing all of it. If people want to want more information, and definitely also we're going to include in the show notes, we're going to include the information about the best hotels, because I think that is very important, and people probably, if I'm interested, I'm definitely going to download it. But if they want to get in touch with you or know more about you, where should they go?
So we're big proponents of LinkedIn. It's easy to connect with people there. So just go to American Meetings at LinkedIn, or Andy McNeill. You can find me there. And hit us up. We'd love to hear from you. Please follow us. And we provide great information on an ongoing basis on creating great meeting experiences. So there's lots of great information on our website at americanmeetings.com or LinkedIn.
Fantastic. Well, Andy, thank you so much.
Addie, thanks so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. And you have got a great product, because process in everyone's business is so important. So best of luck to your business. And thanks for having me on.
You're very welcome.
Thanks for listening to the System Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.